Hi and welcome back to the Escape Room Scholar. My name is Rob, and in today's session we'll be talking all about narratives, or the plots, the storylines behind and how our escape rooms all work together. Well, if you're anything like me, a teacher or professor or someone that's used to educating, you're probably quite used to writing questions and problems that your students need to solve. But maybe the narratives that we're talking about in escape rooms are a little bit of a foreign idea. They don't kind of go with the job like the other ones do. It's a different form of writing, something a bit out of the ordinary. At least that's something that I found as I began to write them. I also found though that for my students, when they were writing these things, they tended to gravitate towards the narratives a whole lot easier than the puzzles. They tend to make the puzzles odious or impossible to solve, maybe using knowledge that was only in their heads. But the narratives they tend to make quite real and interactive and fun. Maybe it's they sat around a pizza and were plotting out these ideas together, or maybe they were using some sort of generative AI, I'm not sure. I guess that leads to the question, do I use generative AI, something like ChatGPT, to help write my narratives? And the answer is, well, yes and no. I actually really enjoy writing the narratives now and thinking through the creative aspects of that and how the escape room will fit together. And normally I do it in a shower or a long walk or something like that when I can think a bit creatively. But sometimes I get a bit stuck and I use it to generate some possibilities for me, like give me some suggestions for a fictitious African country, or give me suggestions for an evil empire, or a mind control device, or something that needs to be diffused, some sort of a top secret weapon, or give me suggestions for the name of a hero that has these certain superpowers or something like that. And something like generative AI can help generate some suggestions that I might need to modify a bit, but some of them have been quite good. When I've tried to generate the whole escape room narrative with ChatGPT or something like that, it hasn't really fit together quite as well. It's been a bit more disjointed and the puzzles haven't connected particularly well to the narrative. At least that's been my experience. Having said that, it may get better in the future. In terms of trying to tie that narrative together strongly, one of the questions that Professor Scott Nicholson asks is, who was in this space before the players and why did they lock things up? And that helps us answer that why question. Why is this room the way it is? And that's a question that we need to ask pretty early on to help us stop creating a narrative that's just contrived, that has no real connection to the puzzles and no meaning for those puzzles, and just having a random set of puzzles and a random narratives and they don't really connect very strongly. That helps us connect those puzzles strongly to those narratives and have a reason, rather than just progressing to escape, a reason in an immersive sense of why are they here and how do they all connect together. Now, one of the common threads in most escape rooms is that there is a narrative and that the players are some heroes within that narrative. Escape room veteran Sarah Priest helpfully came up with a schema of 6 fundamental types of escape rooms that encapsulate most of the main themes or scenarios that escape roomers will find themselves in. Those ones are the imprisonment one, where you're trying to escape a particular thing. A disaster one, where you're trying to fix a particular thing. A heist, where you're trying to steal something. An investigation, where you're trying to solve a particular problem or some sort of a mystery. A quest, where you follow something. And a test, where you're trying to win something. Now, reflecting on the escape rooms that I've created in the past, I've done ones that fit into probably all of these categories. I started off with those escape the thing sort of ones, getting stuck in some sort of a cave, Indiana Jones style or something like that, or some science fiction ones as well. But then I branched out into those different areas. Themed ones of apprehending a supervillain, themed ones of getting stuck in a secret room during an internship and needing to complete some sort of a test to get out that the employees had secret information for. Preventing some sort of a cyber attack and stealing secret information, think Mission Impossible sort of style. I had students complete a quest style one that had a bit of a Lord of the Rings theme to it. When I'm thinking about the sort of puzzles that I'm looking, it's helpful to ask what sort of schema or which one of those big picture ideas would fit well into this and would tell the story well. And that will help us think about what fundamental scenario would be helpful to write our narrative around. From there, we can think about our learners. Who are they? What do they know about? What sort of things would be helpful for them, and what would they be interested in? For example, if I was pitching an escape room idea to a bunch of retired people, some senior citizens, for example, I probably wouldn't go with a Minecraft or a Super Mario theme. They don't really know about that, at least most of them probably won't. It's not something that's probably interesting to them. That would probably pitch really well to a high school or a primary school audience. And likewise, I wouldn't pick a horror theme for a primary school audience. In fact, I don't tend to pick horror themes for anything. That's a bit of personal preference. That I don't really like watching horror movies. But also, I want people to walk away feeling uplifted from an escape room experience and not heavy and weighed down, which horror can tend to do to people as well. Probably about the closest that I've got to a horror theme is a Jurassic Park-like theme where you need to break into a particular room to get the tranquilizer darts before, well, who knows what the velociraptors were going to do. So having thought through those fundamental scenarios of like escape and quest and test, what actual theme should we use within them? There's a whole series of ideas around what could be generated, and it's based on largely your creativity. And some of them might be movie-based ones, common movies that people tend to know. Things like the science fiction movies, the Back to the Futures, the Jurassic Parks and things like that. And you've got your Lord of the Rings and superhero sort of themed ones, Sherlock Holmes ones, Indiana Jones ones. The idea being that you might be picking common themes from these sort of things, but not just ripping off the movie completely. We don't really want to get sued by a large film house because we've just basically retold their movie in an escape room format. But taking some of the ideas from it's a different story, particularly if you're changing names and things like that. So there's spy ones and things like that as well. Now, another thing you might be able to do is some sort of historical narrative. This might be particularly relevant if you're teaching something history-based. So you might go back to Roman times or biblical times or gladiator times or something like that. You could have a Wild Wild West narrative or an ancient Egyptian narrative or something from the Middle Ages, for example. Those might help you set a particular scene, and you can imagine with a Roman one, you'll have some Roman numerals puzzles and things like that. Your puzzles and maybe some Caesar ciphers, they might fit more closely to that particular narrative. You could also have some sort of an industrial theme. So if you're trying to give students a particular perspective into a profession, your narrative might be set inside a nuclear reactor or a water treatment plant or within the police force or something like that. Something that gives students a perspective inside an industry they might be working in. And then there's a whole series of other cultural tropes that you could choose, from the pirates ones to the zombies ones, although I'd probably avoid that because I don't like the horror themes. The heist, being stuck in some sort of a submarine or a space shuttle or something like that. Some sort of a spy mission and maybe incorporating some elements of Mission Impossible there. Fairy tale quests, and you can think of all the different fairy tales out there. The jungle sort of ones, maybe an enchanted forest, or maybe some Middle Ages one with castles and knights and dragons and princesses, all those sort of things. Maybe some sort of an animal rescue one, or something that relates to some cartoons or something that kids might be familiar with. Now, admittedly, this is far from an exhaustive list. If you're getting stuck on a particular one, it might be worth stopping for a while, going for a walk, having a shower, and maybe even not thinking about it for a moment, because sometimes when we're not thinking about these things explicitly, our brain's joining all the dots in the background. And when we come back to it, we find that we've got a whole lot more creative juices and energy to be able to apply to solve those particular problems and create some sort of a narrative around it. At least that's been my experience in the past. Sometimes sitting at a desk and thinking and thinking and thinking and not really getting anywhere. But when you're not thinking about it, something's going on behind the scenes and you can come back to it and you're like, oh, yes, what a great idea. There could be this and there could be this, and that's how it could connect to that puzzle. That's part of the escape room experience of thinking through not just what the puzzles are, but how the narrative joins them all together and connects them all together. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoy writing some narratives and have some fun with them. I hope your learners enjoy reading through those narratives and get some enjoyment out of them as well.